This week's video is brought to you by my upcoming manga Amaranth Angels. In a future where humanity is expanding into space, Sai Nishizawa is a starfighter pilot prodigy, flying alongside her big sister and their close friend. However, following a sudden tragedy, Saya only wants to run as far from a cockpit as she can. Fate, however, has other ideas. You can start reading the prologue, which details the events that lead up to Saya's decision, on Webtoons now, and you can subscribe to my Patreon to read ahead. It's my contribution to the fun and underserved cute girls doing military things genre. We've got cute girls flying starfighters and exciting, fast-paced space battles, in service of a great story. God willing, it'll be coming to Kickstarter soon. Also, I currently have a small GoFundMe campaign running on behalf of my artists working with me on their project. Philip has been great to work with, and I'd appreciate any support you could throw his way to help him repair the computer he uses for his work. Now, onto the video. Well, you guys voted, and I shall deliver. Going to be sprinkling in at least a few Lycoris Recoil focused videos along with the regular Girls on Panzer content. I'm glad you gave me an excuse to rewatch it, by the way. It's really such a wonderful show. I'll pause here to give my regular spoiler warning. While I'll be focusing on the show's opening today, I may end up mentioning or referencing some somewhat spoilery things, and this is a show you definitely do not want to be spoiled on if you're new to it. So, as you may have guessed from the video's title, I'm going to be focusing on the opening of Lycoris Recoil's first episode. I like starting from the beginning. Lycoris Recoil was a bit of a tricky show to set up right from the outset, since there's quite a lot to it. In addition to providing the basic setup for the setting, a semi-dystopian New Future Japan, it needs to establish the show's tone and start setting the stage for the show's main conflict. Normally, that's not too hard to do. To use Girls on Panzer as an example, despite its rather out-there premise, it was clear from the outset that while there are high school girls fighting tank battles, it was an upbeat, relatively lighthearted show, not a war story or something like that. So its opening just needed to showcase the tank battles, with enough signs that it was a cute girls doing things show. But with Lycoris Recoil, it's not so simple. Here we've got almost two separate shows, with very contrasting tones, polymerized into one. On the one hand, we've got the Lycoris, actual assassin girls, and the plot could get quite bloody and violent. But on the other hand, we've got a cozy slice-of-life buddy cop type story with Chisato, Takina, and the rest of the Lyco gang. While from a storytelling perspective, the show perfectly blends it all together, the almost bipolar tone could be confusing, and therefore off-putting to new viewers, if the blend wasn't nailed from the get-go. And, like I also mentioned earlier, the basics of the setting, one with a subtly dark undertone, needs to be established here as well. This is a more plot-heavy show than, say, Girls on Panzer, so it needs to get that in motion. And how do you do that? Well, as is often the answer with this show, via Chisato, of course, since she's a perfect embodiment of the two seemingly contrasting tones of the different parts of the show. This actually ties into the main conflict, but it's a subject for another video. We start off in what is, presumably, Chisato's apartment, as she gets ready to start her day, while a news broadcast voiceover plays. The news report itself is pretty mundane, but it's more than just background noise, since it mentions the attack on the old radio tower and the building of the new one, things that'll be extremely relevant later. But on a first watch, we don't know that. In between the seemingly mundane report and Chisato's upbeat and energetic dialogue, from her first line she's already the cutest person ever, we're lulled into a sense of calm. Even during her conversation with Mika over the phone, and the comments she makes as she heads out, there are no hints at the violent undertones of the story, and the setting, at least not yet. They don't give away the fact that she's basically anime girl John Wick. For all we know, she's heading off to work at a normal job. So far, things are leaning toward the upbeat, slice-of-life side of things. But even at this point, there are hints at something else here. Primarily the fact that things are still a little dark outside. It's still early morning after all, and there's just a lot of gray in this scene. This, of course, serves to make Chisato in her red outfit really stand out as a bright spot. I wouldn't be surprised at all if this was intentional, considering Chisato is a happy ball of sunshine that lights up any place or scene she's in. And it also is a little hint to the fact that she stands out as noticeably different amid the rest of the Lycoris later on. The last segment of this opening is easily the best part though. As Chisato cheerfully narrates about how nice and safe this future Japan is, the show suddenly reveals that there is much more than it seemed at first. Wait a minute. Has that guy got a time bomb in his bag? Did that schoolgirl just shoot a guy? And another guy? Clearly, this is not a simple slice-of-life story. Although, it's also not just an action show about schoolgirl assassins either. It's both. Something different, something more. But in just a few lines of voiceover, we're not just given the key basics about the premise and the setting, we're also unsettled a bit. It's such a great visual storytelling, combined with narration, that isn't just a basic info dump. People tend to be good at picking up on tonal conflicts, when things don't feel quite right, and the cheery narration, contrasted with the violent murder, is supposed to put us a little on edge, to wonder whether this peaceful Japan we're hearing about is actually what it seems to be, or whether there's a darker side to it, since, historically, secret polices that cover up things and disappear people tend to not exactly be good things. And this background mystery of who's in the right, what's the best way to do things, is a constant throughout the show. Without delving into detailed spoilers, the DA, the organization which controls Lycoris, is honestly pretty shady in many respects. But a discussion of the DA, and of course a certain green-haired man, will need to be saved for another time. The last line of Chisato's narration, though, carries a lot of weight, and both encapsulates her conflict and plants another question in the minds of the viewers. What Chisato has just told us is basically the DA party line about what they do. But her wording hints that, as we'll soon see, she's definitely not fully on board with what the DA does and how it operates. Just like the show itself in some ways, Chisato is a walking contradiction, embodying both contrasting elements of Lycoris Recoil. On the one side, she's a John Wick caliber gunslinger, while also being the nicest, most wholesome person I've ever seen in a show, who refuses to kill even those trying to kill her. A deeper dive into her as a character will also be coming in the not too distant future, by the way. So to recap, in just over 90 seconds, the show manages to establish the basics of its setting, prepare us for the conflicting tones of the two main aspects of the show, and even manages to plant, or at least start planting, the seeds of conflict and doubt for both us, the viewers, and Chisato. And while we're sort of introduced to Chisato here, it's noteworthy that we don't get a clear view of her face during this intro, since the focus of our attention here is meant to be the narration and the action in the city. This was probably an intentional choice. If Chisato's face was in view, she'd steal everyone's attention, so they save that for a few minutes down the line. All told, Lycoris Recoil did a really great job setting the stage here, especially considering the challenge of establishing the conflicting tones. They make it look so easy when it's anything but. Particularly since it's an anime original, it really needed to sell this to keep viewers engaged in watching. Well, even the most skeptical viewer was probably still on board after this, and if the rest of the first episode wasn't enough to sell them on Lycoris Recoil, there was honestly no help for them. Rewatching this show has reminded me just how great it was, and just how many things about it are worth talking about or analyzing in greater detail. So you should definitely look forward to more Lycoris Recoil videos in the future. If you enjoyed this video and like to support me and what I do here, check out the links to my books and light novels below in the description. A link to my Patreon is down there too. I've started sharing some awesome updates, including completed pages, from my upcoming manga Amaranth Angels there, and there are other rewards too. You can also start reading the prologue for free over on Webtoons. Additionally, I've got some cool merch over on TeePublic. And as usual, if you have any thoughts on this video or just anything Lycoris Recoil related you'd like me to talk about, definitely share them below in the comments. I'd love to hear them, and do my best to read and eventually respond to all of the comments. And don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss any future uploads. That's all for now, so until next time.